Hi there. I wanted to share a tool that I use when I'm either evaluating existing copy or a marketing campaign or I'm creating one. Recently, since getting to know people in the cult, people have shown me some of their copy and asked for a review. All the time, I really don't look at the surface stuff right away. I really try to go to the underlying architecture of the persuasive elements. I try to look for the deepest things first. You can change words. You can change words around. You can change grammar, punctuation, spelling, all that kind of stuff. You can put adjectives, power words, but if the overall underlying persuasive elements are not improved, you'll get a small increase in conversion. But if you work on the underlying persuasive elements and make those stronger, then you'll get a much bigger jump in your conversions. So this tool is basically the first step I go to all the time. I got it from a book called P&G 99, Procter & Gamble 99, and it is a real simple book that kind of went over the underlying psychology and mindset of the executive strata of Procter & Gamble. And I got a lot of benefit from that, not so much because of the way they did business, but it taught me what, like masters, people who have mastered the game, where they invest their time and energy in themselves. What do they consider most important? And that's where I developed this concept, and I use it, and it's made me a lot of money. It's made a lot of my clients a lot of money, so on and so forth. So let's get into it. It's called the Power of One. Why do you want to do it? Number one, multiplies the power of your marketing and your copy. Okay, doesn't really increase it, doesn't provide a boost. It multiplies it. It dramatically increases your conversions. This one I find very important is that it reduces waste in writing. Sometimes you're not sure where to go with a product and you write a lot of stuff and then you have to cut it all out, cut out a whole bunch of stuff. I like to reduce that as much as possible. And when you apply this, you'll find that a lot of your writing and even if you're not writing, if you're doing something else, a lot of it will be done knowing where the bullseye is. Okay, so if you start your copywriting clearly with a clear view of where the bullseye is, then every word, every letter, every sentence is like a machine gun that is aimed right at the bullseye. So it reduces waste. It also keeps your writing contained. When I'm doing reviews for sales letters, one of the things I see very common is that the sales letter sells too many different things. It goes in too many different directions, and it disperses the energy of the reader. So we don't want that. You actually want every line that you read going down the sales letter. If you read it going from top to bottom, you want every line to intensify the proof elements of one big claim instead of having so many different claims. That's really what's going to sell something better. So I just wrote a note down. It prevents your copy from going in too many directions. Okay, so that's why you want to. That's the benefit of understanding this concept of the Power of One and utilizing it. So what is this Power of One? Basically, I call it the Power of One because it. Okay, this is a typo. I call it the Power of One because I'm trying to reduce everything down to one customer, one pain, and one promise, and that's it. If you can't see that, if I can't see that in the first 100 to 300 words of a sales letter, or a marketing campaign, or a sales video, I don't care what it is. Even if it's a 30-second ad, if I can't get these three things, and if it's not ultra clear. And when I say ultra clear, I mean if it is on planet Earth, I need to be able to see it from outer space. It should be that clear. If it is not clear, then there is no use correcting grammar, spelling, the headline, or any of that. It is just not worth correcting all that until you get this done. It's like you have a big ship that's sinking, and there's different size holes in the hull. This is the biggest hole for me, and so I will fix that first. So the one customer, what do I mean by that? Is when I'm reading the beginning, the opening of a sales piece, I want to be able to know, can I see a living, breathing customer from space? Okay, so I mean, from a very, very vast distance, can I see a living person at the other end of this when I read the words or hear the words? And can I see a character? Can I see traits? Can I see behaviors, beliefs, attitudes? If I don't, then I may only be able to see a demographic. I may be able to see it's a woman in her between 35 to 55. Oftentimes when I ask people, who's your customer, they'll give me a demographic profile. And that does not bring a customer to life. It is not a living, breathing customer. It's just data. Okay? So the other thing is that a lot of marketing speaks to too many people. It doesn't really clearly identify one person it's talking to. So if you can avoid speaking to so many people, speaking to a demographic, if you can avoid writing in a way where no one can see a distinct character or a living, breathing customer, then your conversions are going to explode. If you can do the opposite, then you're going to do very well. So that's what I mean by one customer. Does one person come to your mind when you read someone's copy? If not, fix that first. One pain. Does your marketing or your copy telegraph one overriding pain? If not, fix that first. Okay, this is just like the one customer. Sometimes they overlap, but not all the time. But it needs to be clear what the overriding pain is. The thing about the pain is when you're communicating the pain, it can be explicit or it can be implicit. You can describe the pain in an indirect way by saying lots of other things. Even by saying the promise or the benefits of your product, you will implicitly be speaking to the pain point. Like never hit a golf ball that curves to the right again. That implicitly or implies the pain point of not being able to hit a golf ball straight. But basically, the thing here is, can you reduce it down to one pain point that a person can see, can get from the beginning of your sales pitch? If you can do this, your conversions are going to explode. The next thing is one promise. Now, this is more important than the pain, okay? This one should not be implicit. You want to be crystal clear with one basic promise, okay? It has to be very clear. It can be a USP, but it doesn't have to be. It can just be a straight benefit. What is the thing that's going to happen? So that's what I mean by one customer, one pain, and one promise, okay? So if you're starting to write a sales letter, I would do this first, especially if I'm writing for something I'm not familiar with. I need to get this. I need to find out who the customer is. I need to find out what's the one overriding pain point and what the one promise is. Now, on the surface, this seems simple, but there are a lot of holes you can start poking into it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to find your one customer, one pain, and one promise, and state it in a way that creates a tremendous amount of power. And when you go through this exercise, you'll see that the copy starts to write itself for you. So let's get into the one customer. So who is the customer? When I asked that question, I found that it's a very hard question for people to answer. They answer in a very general way. The answer should always describe the customer as unique and special. Okay? An even better way of saying this is, how does the customer feel alone? This is what I look for. Okay, this is how cults. Okay, like you think about Jim Jones, and how does someone like Jim Jones convince very intelligent, successful, well-adjusted people in society to move their family to a new location and end up committing suicide? Right? What was the original hook that made a person get stuck, or what was the original lure that they bit into? And my belief is that, my observation as well, is that the quote-unquote marketing tapped into the feeling that they were alone, that they were unique, that they were misunderstood by their family, their friends, and their immediate associates. There was something about their life that it carried a strong and powerful emotional weight, but when they tried to explain it to another person, no one else could understand. And in that regards, they feel they're unique. So I'm always looking for what will make a person say, no, you don't understand. My pain is different. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for, right? And when I get those answers, I'm really starting to narrow down on a very intense description of a customer. So that goes without saying, you need to forget about demographics, or at least I forget about demographics. So I created a technique for honing in on how to identify or describe a customer in such a way that when that customer reads the copy, it is completely and absolutely irresistible for them to not read it. They cannot help but want to know more. Okay? So I'm going to go into these unique identifiers right now. So the first thing is age. Okay? So that's what I put there. It's really obvious. Sometimes the age of a person is what makes them feel unique and different. Let's talk about, for example, dating, like the dating niche. If I'm writing dating advice and I'm selling that, okay, a 22-year-old guy may not even consider that his age matters, okay? But a 55-year-old man who is suddenly single, for example, or is back in the dating world, he will consider his age is a vital criteria that makes him feel unique. If a lot of the advice I'm giving can work for a young guy, he will say, no, that won't work for me. You don't understand. I'm 55 years old. You see? So the age is a unique identifier to this person. It's what he uses to make himself feel different and unique or alone. Gender is another thing. Okay, so if I write weight loss advice and I say, okay, here's weight loss advice, you can lose 10 pounds in 90 days, whatever. Now, if I say you can lose 10 pounds in 90 days, this is weight loss advice for women, okay, women will perk up and want to read that. If I say this is weight loss advice for men, men will perk up, because in this particular case, we're speaking to something that makes them feel unique, okay? There are lots of other examples for this where gender is it's a very important qualification that the customer uses to see themselves as different or unique. Position. I should write down position/role. So here is the position they believe they're holding or the role they believe they're trying to fulfill. So it could be the CEO of a large company, or it could be the business owner of a very large company or something like that, or it could be a mother. Either way, they believe there's a role in their life they're trying to fulfill, and they get a tremendous amount of self-esteem and value based on how well they fulfill this role. So if I say health advice for moms, that becomes more intriguing, engenders more curiosity to the person that feels he or she is fulfilling the role of a mother. If I say it's dating advice for the executive, then the executive who is single and wants to date will believe this information has some special quality that is meant for them, because they're using their position to make themselves feel unique and different. The pain also is another unique identifier. If I talked about the 55-year-old guy who is single again and trying to go back into the dating world, his pain is a lot more intense. It could be a lot more intense. Okay, like if we had a successful guy in business, was very healthy, because he was successful in those things, the pain of being alone and not having any children or a family, that becomes even more intense. So if you combine some of these things together, the pain itself can be a unique identifier. Okay, so he can say, no, you don't understand. My pain of not being able to find a partner in life is different than yours. You're young. I'm older. Okay, I'm just making these things up, but I'm sure you can come up with your own. Circumstance is another unique identifier that I use. Is let's say we're talking about the dating thing again, and it's a guy, but instead of a guy who just wants to make dates or find dates or find a partner, let's say he's actually a widower. Okay, his wife, who he was in love with and everything like that, died. Let's say she died of cancer. And so that is a circumstance. He's now a widower. Okay, so that is a whole different story. So if you have dating advice for widowers, okay, can you see how that really makes the person feel very unique and very special and very much, it taps into the feeling of being alone, that other people cannot understand what he's going through. And again, I'm using a male example, but of course it goes all different ways. An event is also something that is a unique identifier, or can be. Not all the time, but it can be. None of these can be all the time, You want to see what applies to your customer in relation to your product. But an event, let's take the death of the spouse. If there was a death of the spouse, of the wife, then and you combine that with a circumstance where he actually has children, can you see how this guy, and then you add on to that he's, in his mid-40s, for example. So he's a father who is also a widower. Let's add on to that he's an executive, so he doesn't have a lot of time to just go on these crazy dates. He doesn't want to go to bars. This guy really feels he's different, okay? The next thing is passion, okay? This is really simple. If there's enough of an acute passion, like it's very, very pointed, then it can eclipse all the other unique identifiers. For example, I really love cigars, and I can connect with another person who loves cigars, even though we have nothing in common. We will feel a connection and feel like we're good friends just because we talked about cigars. I've seen this happen with religious people who are into the same religion. I've seen this happen for people who are fans of the same football team. So there's a passion there. The next thing is community. If you're part of a community, that is a very, very powerful, unique identifier. I once did a very, very large campaign, a fundraising campaign, and it was geared towards recovering alcoholics. Now, people who are recovering alcoholics, especially if they're going to AA meetings, they don't see themselves as individuals. They see themselves as part of a community of recovering alcoholics. When you're a recovering alcoholic going to AA, you're in the club. You're in a secret society. Even though you may physically not have a secret handshake, there really is one. Okay, everyone understands what a sponsor is. They understand what the 12 steps are. They understand what the badges mean that they're carrying in their pocket for how many days they've been sober. It takes on a certain significance. And again, it's a way the person can say, no, you don't understand my depression. You don't understand my strife and my pain and suffering in life. It's different than yours. Again, we're just trying to find a way to intensify how a person feels alone and misunderstood. The last thing here is location. This is not always applicable. I usually use this only for local businesses. If there's a local business, let's say if it's a contractor who is in Dallas, I will always make sure that he says he services, if he's born and raised in Dallas, I'll say he's born and raised in Dallas and services the community of Dallas, because that connotes the idea that he's one of us. Okay, so it is a unique identifier. So the person, if the customer is in a location, he uses that to identify his own identity. So basically what we're doing here is, this is a quick and easy way, at least as far as I see it, is a quicker way of finding a very crisp and clear identity. Okay, now an identity is the last thing a person will give up in their existence. They can give up a lot of things, but they will not give up their identity. And I've read several books on POW camps in Vietnam and what it took to convert an American into a communist. And it took a long time, and it took a lot of steps, because you had to replace the person's identity of who they believed they were. And these unique identifiers are ways that it's almost like the anatomy of an identity. What are the things that people view themselves as that make them say, this is who I am? So as you can see, I combined some of them in some of the examples, but if you combine them, like 2 or 3, maybe 4, you will find a very distinct character. A 44-year-old man who's an executive who cannot find the love of his life. That's 4 right there, okay? If you get your dating product, which is generalized, and you repurpose it for this customer, you purchase traffic for this customer and direct it to your marketing, where your marketing quickly reveals these 4 things, you're going to have explosive conversions, a tremendous amount of trust, okay? And then you can start working on your back-end sales, okay? So you can combine them. The end result basically is, if you can get maybe about 4 of these and describe a person using at least about 4 of these. If you use more, it's not that it's bad, it just gets wordy, and when you're doing copywriting, you want to use as few words as possible. But basically the end result is, I want to be able to tell the person's story back to them in a way where they'll say, that's my story, that's my life. I'm going to end off now because I'm approaching the end. I'm going to make follow-up videos to do the rest of this.